Hi, welcome in. My name is Sarah. I'm a mindset mastery coach, transformational hypnotherapist, and attachment style specialist. In today's video, I'm covering the dismissive avoidant moving on to a new person and how I know they're not treating that new person better than you. So stay tuned to the end. It'll be a nice, short, concise video. Very quickly, if you'd like to work with me one-on-one, there's a link below to my calendar to book a free 15-minute discovery call to see if we are a good fit. Also, stay tuned for upcoming group classes, also online group courses. So very excited. One will be live, one will be online, just to differentiate. All right, so I want to dive into this topic. So the dismissive avoidant in the aftermath of a breakup. I have lots of videos on this, so please go check them out. I even have a playlist for dismissive avoidance as well as fearful avoidance. And the one thing that I want to say that you're going to notice, probably if it's a true dismissive avoidant, is this individual moving on rather quickly, like at the speed of lightning. But also, not just that, but seemingly unaffected by your absence, right? They were definitely affected by your presence. You definitely triggered them in your presence, but your absence seems to create almost peace within this person. That's because that's exactly what they're feeling. They're feeling a sense of relief and they're feeling peace in the aftermath of the discard or in the aftermath of the breakup. It's not always a discard with a dismissive avoidant. Sometimes it can be more of just a regular breakup. But what I have noticed in breakups with dismissive avoidance is this pattern. Even if it's not a discard, even if they do have, they're an ethical avoidant and they're somewhat aware of your feelings and their feelings and how their decisions might be affecting you, it's going to feel like a unilateral decision. In other words, it's going to feel like they're making the decision for you. And there's subtle manipulation tactics that they'll use that I don't even know if they're consciously aware of, that will kind of like plant seeds in your head of doubt and make you side with them. So you might even agree to the breakup and then look back and go, that's not really what I wanted. How did we get here? So it's like smooth operator effect. I don't even think they realize they're doing this. I think it's that they've convinced themselves that this is for the best. Even if they're old, even if they're, like they've lived half of their life or, they're in their 60s or 70s even, they truly, truly at some level feel defective. They truly feel like they do not deserve love or companionship or partnership because they know on some level that they always kind of mess things up. They just kind of go like, I always mess things up and I don't know how to fix it and I don't know how to fix myself. And I think for them, it's often easier for them to just kind of stay distant. And I've spoken to a dismissive avoidant, I've spoken to several, and what they will tell you is, it was easier for me to stay gone because by me staying gone, I felt like I was doing that person a favor. I felt like me leaving was the best thing I could do for them. Again, unilateral decision. You don't get to decide what's best for your partner. Your partner, this should be a conversation that you both have where you both decide and you talk about it. Well, what are things we can do to salvage this relationship? Right? If we have communication issues, which you'll most definitely have with a dismissive avoidant, there's going to be communication issues or there's going to be you not getting your needs met and them also feeling overwhelmed, right, by your needs and then feeling attacked even by your needs because they just don't know how to carry even their own needs. Guys, this is why a dismissive avoidant shows up in a relationship like they really won't let you do anything for them. They'll typically perform acts of service. That's typically their love language. But then when you try to do something in return, okay, I see this is your love language. Let me then do acts of service for you. You're inevitably going to mess it up because you're not going to be able to do it their way. They like things done their way. They will tell you this. And you'll just kind of feel like a failure in that regard. And you'll feel like you're not able to serve them. You're not able to speak their love language. And that can be really frustrating as a partner. So some signs that things are ending. And then I'm going to get to the part where we talk about how I know that they haven't moved on and how I know that they're not living this fantasy life with this new person, even if it looks like it on social media. They're going to start pulling away. Probably gradually. You may not even notice this. They're going to start withholding affection and intimacy and sex. They're going to start kind of being more in their own world, in their own space, making excuses to work late, making excuses to go in the garage and fiddle with things, making excuses to stay gone, disinviting you from events. Like they are purposefully kind of plotting their escape and erasing you from their life. Like, I don't have any other nicer way to say that. They are erasing you. It's like, let me take the eraser and just erase this person from my life. And the best way they can do that is gradually. It may seem sudden to you, but when you look back on things, you can go, you know what? They did start pulling away. And I did notice that there was less intimacy, not just physical sexual intimacy, but emotional intimacy, if there ever was any to begin with. Typically, with a true dismissive avoidant, you will see glimpses and insights into this beautiful, deep, just profoundly incredible person. And then you'll be like, where did that person go? That person will disappear in in the light of day, right? You might get it like late at night and in the light of day, or after a few drinks, right? Or after a gummy, but in the light of day, that person has disappeared. I remember specifically, I know I've shared this on a video before, but it's such a core memory of my marriage where it wasn't even night. We were like, it was like 5 or 6 p.m. I think we had dinner. He had gone somewhere and I'd forgotten that he had taken a gummy, and he had gone somewhere and come back, and he was like a cuddly teddy bear, like the guy that I met in the beginning. And he was like loving, and he was playful, and he had loosened up. And I was like, oh yes, this is the man. Like, I'm in love with this person. This is the version of you that I'm in love with. And I got so excited. And then I was like, wait a minute. And I remembered he took a gummy. So then I thought to myself, you need a substance to relax in my presence, or to show up as this dream person that I fell in love with. Like, that's not sustainable in a long-term relationship. And my heart sank. And it was in that moment that I realized, I don't think this is sustainable. If this is what it takes for us to get on the same level and have these deeper conversations and for me to feel emotionally fulfilled, then I don't think this is going to work. But in those moments, he could go deep. We would have conversations about life and death. We would have these conversations about, existential stuff and more spiritual stuff. And he would tell me more about like how he thought he had failed and, with his kids and things like that. And I just thought, God, this is the person that I need, this version. But that variation in that version just wasn't showing up enough, not for me. The other thing I'll say, because I think somebody out there, at least one person out there, needs to hear this. Even if they're performing acts of service, like they're paying all the bills, or they're putting you on their family plan, or they're changing your oil, and they're gassing up your car, and they're doing these things, or cooking you meals, these are all beautiful acts of service. But that doesn't mean that that's enough. And you don't have to feel guilty if that's not enough for you. I felt guilty because I thought this should be enough. These were thoughtful gestures from my husband, but it wasn't enough. It didn't make me feel connected to him. It was nice things that he was doing for me, very thoughtful things from the goodness of his heart, but it wasn't enough for a marriage. It was enough for a friendship, but I needed more. I needed emotional intimacy and companionship. I needed to feel that desire. And you often don't feel that from a dismissive avoidant. So if it's not enough for you, then own that it's not enough for you. Otherwise, you're self-abandoning, and you will end up resenting yourself and resenting him, and then having to forgive yourself while forgiving him or her. So let's get into the topic now of, okay, the breakup or discard has happened and they've moved on, and you see them dating a new person. Perhaps it's all over social media, or you're hearing it from mutual friends and family. Now, it looks like everything's perfect. I can't tell you how many times I've heard this from clients. And they'll say to me, how do you know for sure that they haven't moved on? I know because they haven't changed in 2 weeks. They haven't changed in 4 months. In particular, this is a lifetime adaptation. This is something that they adapted likely in childhood. This is not something that can be healed in a couple weeks or even a couple months. They can start working on it in that time frame, but it's going to take a lot more time for them to truly understand that they have this attachment style and the things that they need to do and implement on a daily basis to start their healing process. And they need somebody to hold their hand and walk them through it, just like all of us do. We all need mentors and coaches and therapists. The best coaches and therapists out there, guys, have their own team, their own mentors, coaches, and therapists. You're not walking this road alone, nor should you. So with the dismissive avoidant, like, they might say, oh, I started going to, like men's groups or women's groups. That's not enough. That's not therapy. They need individual one-on-one therapy in order to dissect what happened in their childhood And also they need to be honest with themselves and honest with their therapist, or have a therapist who's versed in attachment theory and parts work. And there's some great therapists out there, and there's some really shitty therapists out there who aren't even going to touch on that, who aren't even going to call them out. They need to be called out. We all need to be called out in order to change. We need somebody to say, hey, you're doing that thing that you do. Don't do that anymore. There's other options, there's other ways. So they may have stepped into a new role, into a boyfriend or a girlfriend or husband or wife, even, to another person. But I'm telling you guys with certainty that they haven't changed. Unless it's been years and years, and perhaps, yes, they've done the work. Can they do the work? Yes, they can absolutely do the work. They can absolutely heal to become more secure. I think they will always I think we'll always kind of lean back on our initial on our initial attachment style, whatever was developed, especially in those formative years. But I think we can absolutely work to become mainly secure. And then we'll kind of lean into avoidance, or we'll lean into anxious, right? Or fearful avoidant. So they can heal, absolutely. I can't say for sure if your ex has healed or not. What I can say is that if it's only been a couple days or a couple weeks or even a couple months, it's highly unlikely that they've changed their patterns, their inherent internal systems and triggers and patterns that quickly in order to have a healthy, functional relationship. It's much more likely that they've moved on to somebody who doesn't yet know them. Right? So think about it. At the beginning, that honeymoon period, that dopamine rush, that's what they're looking for. Remember, they don't release serotonin. They don't have that serotonin bonding. They don't have that oxytocin bonding with the partner. So what happens is they get involved with a new person thinking, oh, maybe this is actually my soulmate. This is the person I'm supposed to be with. Look, they accept me for who I am. Until things start to get deeper, until things start to get more serious, until that person starts asking them questions. How did your previous relationship end? And maybe they're relentless, like I was. Well, I want to know, what was your role in those previous relationships in them ending? And what could you have done differently? And what have you done since then to heal? How have you reflected? What have you learned? And guys, I'm telling you, if there's no answer there, if they can't tell you how they've reflected, major, huge red flag for anybody. I don't care how wonderful that person is or how much they seem to have their shit together. If they can't tell you what happened in that previous relationship, then they're simply not ready for a relationship with you. And you should be questioning them, and you should say, I want an answer. And maybe they can come back to you, and if they do some soul searching and come back to you and it seems genuine, then there's a chance. But if they're not able to answer that or don't want to answer that, then maybe don't proceed further with that individual, because you're likely dealing with an avoidant type. So in this new relationship, they could look like they're having fun. Oh, look, this is bringing out their playful side that I always wanted. They're doing all the things I wanted to do with that person. Again, it's likely that they either chose somebody a little more shallow, emotionally shallow, maybe, or it's that that person hasn't yet met that version of them. And I'm going to guess it's probably the latter, although I think it could be the former. But what I find is that dismissive avoidants typically choose highly intelligent, highly emotionally intelligent partners. They're attracted to that because that's what they lack. So that's why I say it's more likely that that person just hasn't met that side of them, that that person hasn't been introduced to the dismissive avoidant attachment style. Maybe that attachment style hasn't even been pinged yet, and maybe they're showing up secure still in the early stages, just like they did with you. Remember, there's a romanticism with the initial stages with a dismissive avoidant, because they haven't yet played their cards. Like, they haven't yet showed their cards. They're keeping them close. But it seems like they're open. It seems like my husband was open and playful, and we got along really well. And it seemed like there was a depth to what we had. But I see now that it was actually a superficial depth, because it wasn't sustainable. It wasn't something that we could sustain over time. As life happened, life events happened, things got hard. Really, like one thing after another, right? Like financial crisis and pet crisis and all of these things, health crisis. And when those things happen, that sort of facade that a dismissive avoidant has even convinced themselves of collapses upon itself. And that's where you see the initial stages of the demise or deconstruction of your relationship. So I hope this video has helped you and given you some insight into your dismissive avoidant ex, but also into your feelings regarding them potentially moving on with a new partner, and seemingly being very happy and whatever, even if they're blasting it all over social media. I feel like anytime someone has to blast a relationship all over social media, perhaps they're trying to convince themselves of something that they're not even convinced of. That's just my 2 cents. I know there are happy couples posting a lot on social media, but how often do you hear about a happy couple suddenly breaking up? But all of the pictures and all the videos looked like heaven, looked like they were having the time of their life, and oh, they're the perfect match, and suddenly they're getting divorced, or suddenly they're not together anymore. So don't believe everything you see on social media. The dismissive avoidant has a lot of work to do on themselves in order to learn how to self-reflect, in order to learn how to get in touch with their emotions, their pain, their anger, their sadness, the sense maybe that they had of being betrayed when they were younger, just the sense of being unseen, the sense of not being important. That defective core wound has to be addressed. Otherwise, they will say, well, you know what? I'm just not cut out for relationships. I'm just not cut out. They will convince themselves that I'm a lone wolf and I need to walk this road alone. And they will live a very lonely life. They have deep feelings, guys. They have deep feelings. And it doesn't show, and you can't see it. You can't even feel it. You can't access it because they've got a wall, steel armor surrounding them. But I'm telling you, they have deep feelings. And those feelings are suppressed and repressed. They have to come out eventually. Typically, they'll come out with rage or anger, or they'll come out just with, like, you may have noticed, you may have had an experience with your dismissive avoidant in the relationship where they just fell apart. There was one time where that happened, where he just like crumbled into tears, and I was in shock, because this very stoic, kind of detached individual suddenly was just a puddle. And the next day it was like it never happened, which was crushing to me. And I kind of sensed that, so I didn't really lean in too much into it, because I sensed that this would just kind of be a one-time thing, and it was. They want to be seen and witnessed. They want someone to hold space for them, but it's so scary for them because in their childhood, they were not taught that it's okay to have feelings. They weren't taught how to handle those feelings, much less how to handle someone else's feelings. They don't even know what to do with their own internal conflict. How do you expect them to handle yours? It's why they go into logistics when you're crying. It's why they get uncomfortable when somebody has deep or strong emotions in front of them. They don't even allow themselves to go there, to that place of accessing those kind of more tumultuous emotions. So how could they do that for you? So again, I hope this video has given you food for thought and reflection. Please do like, share, and subscribe, guys. It helps the channel immensely grow organically. And I thank you guys for your support and your comments. And have a beautiful day wherever you are, and practice self-love and self-care. And I hope that I see you soon in the next video.